comment, rate, subscribe, merch in the description. Check out our Facebook pages. We got marketplaces you can buy and sell stuff on. So this is my masterclass, episode 32. Essentially the 12 commandments of Dragon Ball Super card game. Well, my commandments, as it were, right? So this is the way I play. These are the rules that I follow. There's other ones, but these are like main 12 ones. These should be more than enough to help anybody play the game better. Or at least if you want to play the way I play, then you'll need to know these things. Because I know these things. That's what it is, right? It's a Skillshare, right? It's sharing of skills and knowledge. So for those who want the knowledge that I have, well, one, check out all the other 31 masterclasses I already made. And of course, pay attention to this one. Because it's supposed to be like essentially a culmination, a summary of all the other masterclasses. But you get way more details and information in it. But this is basically just bringing a lot of my knowledge and experience all together into like one video per se. Oh, damn it, that guy. Give me a sec. All right. Work. So, like I was saying, useful information, so this is the basic rundown, kind of like it's a basic rundown of a duel. So there's obviously no deck building tips in this video and whatnot. Obviously go watch my videos for deck building, but this is more of just like how I play, just how I think, the rules that I follow from my experience playing the game, things that I've noticed that would be useful for people to know about, because most people probably don't know this, especially if you're a beginner and if you're new player and you've been playing for a while and you're watching this video. These are the things you might not know, but you would eventually realize or learn, right, when you spend a lot of time like I do paying attention to a lot of details about the game. That's the thing, I focus on the game, not the meta or what everybody else is doing or what's popular, what's trending and all that stuff like everybody else does. I focus on the game. I try to understand the mechanics of the game. Why did the creators of the game created the game the way they created, right? Why, when you deal damage to your opponent, they add a card to the hand? Why are they benefiting from you attacking them? They shouldn't be benefiting, right? They should be losing. Every time you deal them damage, it's supposed to be a bad thing, not a good thing for your opponent. But in the way this game is designed, it's actually a good thing for your opponent to take damage. That's why you want to use crit, right? When every damage should just be crit by default, but that's not the way the game is. And I understand why, because, a lot of times it's not easy to stop an attack. So more often than not, you're going to take damage. So this is a way to kind of give the person who takes damage a fighting chance, a way to turn the game around to where, to each their own. I prefer if I'm constantly dealing damage, that should be giving me the advantage, not giving my opponent a fighting chance, as it were. But anyway, we get it. I understand why they have it in there, mechanic wise, your opponent adding a card from their life to the hand. Because in Pokemon, when you deal your opponent damage, you take a card from your prize area or your life area, whichever way you want to call it, and then you get rewarded. So every time you succeed at dealing damage, well, in Pokemon, it's knocking out your opponent's Pokemon. But you get my point. Basically, you beat their Pokemon and you get rewarded for it. You get a point of victory, whatever you want to call it, a prize. So in here, I was expecting the same thing, where every time I deal my opponent damage, I'm supposed to benefit from it. But that's not how it is. Ironically, this game is based off of Duel Masters, so I'm used to the idea that whenever I take damage, I add a card from my life to my hand, unless there's an effect, technically crit, I forgot what's the term for it in Duel Masters, but essentially it's crit. So I'm used to the idea of taking damage and adding cards to my hand. It was just that I thought it was a little weird that they added that into this one. You would think it would just be crit damage, but anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point is 12 things to take into account and to think about when you're playing the game. And I want to explain some of these a little bit more. I'm not going to take too long explaining each one. Mulligan away at least 3 cards in your opening hands is something that I tend to do. I notice, that half your hand is good, half your hand is not bad. That tends to be the case. You get a 50-50 hand. The way to put it is that if you built your deck to have cards for attacking and dealing damage and cards for defending, like your blockers and your negates, super combo if you use super combos defensively, right? Things of that nature. Whatever you're using to defend yourself is going to fill up a certain percentage of your deck, and whatever you're going to use to attack with, it's going to take up a certain percentage of your deck. And of course, there's like floodgates and tech cards and little things like that where they're not for attacking. Like you might have a battle card, but it's not for attacking, it's not for blocking. Like Black Mass Sane, the 1-drop Black Mass Sane. You have them because of its effect, right? So you can call them a utility card. So it's not for attacking, it's not for defending, it's just a utility or a floodgate or a side deck card, or tech card, whatever you want to call it. So typically, in your opening hand, you're going to have a mixture of your defense cards and your offense cards. So that's why I tend to mulligan half my hand away, like at least 3 cards typically. And usually those are my defensive cards. I try to keep my offensive cards, because in the first 2 turns I expect to attack, which we will get to later. That's number 4, right? The first 2 turns you want to deal the most amount of damage. So you definitely want your offensive hand, your aggro hand, if you want to call it that. Your aggro hand, not your defense hand, right? You keep your defense and your counter plays, and save them for later for mid to late game, right? But early game, which is turn 1, turn 2 for me anyway, that's the way I look at it. Other people could probably look at it differently, but for me, turn 1, turn 2 is early game. 3 and 4 is mid game, and 5 and above is late game. Anyway, so because of that, the first early game, right, turn 1 and turn 2, you want to do the most damage as possible, at least 4. That's half your opponent's life points, right? At least 4 damage. Because the first 4 damage is the easiest, typically, especially if you're doing the first 2 turns, where your opponent's not likely to defend more, and they're more likely to let you deal them damage. So take advantage of that. And again, I've done this numerous times, so it's not hypothetical that your opponent will let you deal them the first 4 damage. It is literally what happens more often than not. So whether you're good at the game or not, as long as you understand that the first 2 turns, swing, swing, swing. Don't worry about defending. Don't worry about trying not to take damage. No. Just swing at your opponent. Focus on your opponent. Right? Focus on dealing as much damage as possible. And the first 2 turns, try to do 4 damage at least, right? Or more. I tend to do more with some decks. And then go from there. And then play the game. So after turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, and so that's where it's the back and forth. You got to be defensive. You got to hit your opponent right, but be able to block their hits, right? Keep your guard up, right? Hit them, block, right? So that's mid game to late game, where you gotta keep your defenses up. Make sure that you can deal your opponent damage, but they cannot deal you damage, right? So you always want that to be in that position. So that's what I tend to do. Certain matchups, depending, it's very rare. There was a time where I would have to decide between mulliganing my hand to be more offensive or more defensive. But as of after set 5 or 6 or something like that, I didn't need to mulligan defensively as much. I didn't have to defend as much as I had to back in the day. I guess it's because people, back in the day, people used to play like, what is it, Sane Kaba, that one drop becomes 15k double strike, stuff like that. Like, so you kind of did need a turn one blocker, or at least keep one energy up and played, you know, a negate, just because you didn't want to take 2 damage. You'll take 1 damage turn 1, but you didn't want to take 2, right? And then of course, you know, those who did play Champa and East Supreme Kai, that was a factor. But the thing is, I noticed a lot of players don't play that way. They don't try to do, you know, double strike turn 1, you know, try to do, you know, double strike, double strike, single strike, or 2 double strikes on turn 2, right? Most players don't try to do that. I notice most players don't even want to deal their opponent damage because they don't want their opponent to plus, as it were, right, to get card advantage. Oh, that's a bad idea, but hey, to each their own. That's not the way I play. I have no problem letting my opponent draw, take 6 cards from the life and add it to the hand, because you're gonna burn them to death, right? As long as their life points hit 2, I'm good. I don't care how big their hand gets. So anyway, moving on to the next thing is number 2 is don't awaken first. Force your opponent to awaken first. Since set 1, I've experimented with awakening before my opponent, like trying to turbo out awakening. Didn't like it. Didn't get much of a benefit from awakening first. I noticed that when I awaken first, when my opponent awakens second, it tends to just be better, because they tend to awake close to the end of the game, late game. And that tends to be more beneficial to save your awakening for late game than it is to try to awaken, early, right? Like trying to awake mid game. It's like, but the game, not much happens until close to turn 4, right? Like turn 3, not much can be going on there. But once you get to turn 4, that's when like y'all really trying to take each other out. And then that's where the back and forth, like I attack, you negate, all right, end my turn, you attack, I negate, and just we try to go back and forth. So that's why it's like it's best to save your awaken for that. Plus, awaken leaders, most awaken leaders have a certain ability. Whether you untap 2 energies, draw 2 cards, or draw a card and untap energy, depending on how the leader, like what the leader awakening effect is, you can figure out strategies and ways to utilize it later on. So that's the thing, is I'm not saying never awaken. What I'm saying is save your awaken. Don't awaken first. Not never awaken, just don't awaken first. Some people took that the whole I don't awaken first out of context and just made it where it's like I just don't awaken at all. It's like, I don't know, I never said that. I'm just saying I don't awaken first. Now, granted, if there's a specific Hatchiac build, for example, where I'm like, yeah, the idea is not to awaken with this leader, then that's just the strategy. I'm not saying I'm against awakening. I would like to be able to do both, right? Awaken and play stuff that's not black, right? Energy-wise, and Hatchiac. But you gotta be able to do. You gotta do what you gotta do, right? I'm saying it wrong. In order to get a result you want, you have to lose something, right? You gotta give in order to gain, you gotta give, right? You gotta give something up to get something. So give and take, as it were. So I have to give up Hatchiac's awakening in order to gain the ability to play certain colors in the deck that gives me certain advantages. The sooner I get a 2-drop unison out, so I can use it, within within like turn 3 and 4, obviously use it on turn 2, try to get some effect, some use out of it turn 3, either replace it on turn 3 or wait until turn 4 and replace it with something else, and then see what happens, after that. So the sooner the better. I don't want to wait until turn 4. No, not 4. It'll be turn 5. I don't want to wait until turn 5 to play a 2-drop unison, when that unison is more likely best suited for turn 2. The sooner you play it, the better, because I said already that the first 2 turns are very important when it comes to doing stuff, especially when it comes to doing damage. You don't want to wait until turn 3, 4, and 5, right, to try to start doing damage. It'll be harder. The opponent has more energy to play their negates and the blockers and whatever else they got. It's easier for your opponent to defend once they have more energy to defend with. Unless their defense is free, it costs energy to defend, so you always want to take advantage of turn 1, turn 2. So moving on to the third thing, don't combo offensively, only defensively. Unless, there's always, sometimes there's an exception to the rule, right? Unless you want to your opponent to out-combo, right? You'd rather be in a position where you're, where you're not guessing, right? Which is the defensive step. Because when you attack, you don't know how much combo power your opponent has in their hands. Now you could try to use combo math, right, to try to figure it out and try to guess, right? Try to do an educated guess on how much combo power they have in their hand, but you don't know, right? Unless you can play a card and look in their hand and see for a fact what they have in their hand, you don't know what they have in their hand yet, right? So if you attack and you combo and then they out combo you, you just wasted resources, right? You just wasted cards for nothing. You didn't benefit from it. You didn't get the attack to go through, right? So why combo to try to get an attack to go through? It's like comboing when you're going for game. Yeah, that makes sense, right? That's when you definitely should combo offensively. But during the course of the game, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, blah, 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 you don't really need to combo offensively. You rather combo defensively. Because you don't want to take hits, right? You don't want to take hits unless you do, because maybe you're running low on cards in your hand, so you'll take a couple hits so you can fill up your hand again, right? Make some plays. Like let's say you have a topo in your hand, and that's all the card you have in your hand. All right, take a hit so that we can add a card to hand and then play topo on the next attack, right? Stuff like that. Like so you'll take a hit because you have to, or because you need to, but don't take a hit. Don't take a hit because you made the poor choice of comboing when you attack just because you were trying to increase your chances of dealing the damage, because more likely your opponent probably play a super combo or something and out combo you, and then that was pointless if you comboed. So I try not to combo offensively. Plus you should be playing stuff that has 15k power and higher. 20k obviously should be the minimum power of whatever you're playing. 20k is 25, 30, 40, and the list goes on. So you always want really, really strong stuff. And play that way. That way you don't have to combo. That way, whenever you draw a card, you get to keep it and save it for later. Either to combo defensively, right, to prevent yourself from taking damage, or to actually play the card and play the game. You don't want to, combo your Android 17 turning the tide by paying 1 energy. Like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to waste a good card like that trying not to take damage, right? So that's why, you don't want to combo it to try to deal damage. That's what I meant to say. If you have to stop your opponent from dealing you damage, then yeah, combo off your turning the tide. But logically, you just don't want to combo. And any chance you get to not combo is what you want. Because what you want to do is negate attacks, block attacks, and just take an attack. Just take the damage, right? Those are the 3 things you typically want to do. You don't want to discard cards, right? You definitely don't want hand destruction to happen to you, right? You don't want people making you discard. You don't want a combo which is further making your hand smaller. You want your hands to get bigger, not smaller, right? So combo defensively, not offensively. Unless you are trying to force your opponent to out combo on purpose, because you want their hands to be smaller. So you want your opponent to combo a lot, which is why you use strong battle cards and unison and stuff like that, and even leaders, and swinging your opponent, forcing them to combo. Make your opponent combo a lot, you combo less. That's the idea. You want to save your cards and make your opponent waste their cards. 4, do the most damage in the first 2 turns. Like I said, you want to do, you want to take advantage of turn 1, turn 2 to do the most damage. Sometimes most people, they'll play maybe a 1 drop on turn 1 that doesn't do much of it. It's not like a blocker or something like that. So you could take advantage of like trying to do a lot of damage and turn 1, and then do a lot of damage turn 2. And typically you want to do 4, because the first 2 turns is the turns where your opponent tends to be the most defenseless. Like your opponent's not going to drop a topo on turn 1. So if you can go in and attack a lot on turn 1 and drop a whole bunch of free play battle cards and swing on turn 1 and take advantage of that, like I do in some of my decks, then do it. That's the best way. That's the best time to go off to summit, play a whole bunch of free battle cards and swing is on turn 1, right? After that, that's when it's going to be harder to play a whole bunch of battle cards and get attacks to go through, because by then your opponent's going to have a much bigger hand size, so the likelihood of them being able to out combo a lot of your attacks is a lot higher. Let me see. Number 5, you want to deal at least 2 damage a turn, right? That's pretty basic. Because if you're swinging with your leader only every turn, right, for 4 turns, that's potentially 4 damage. Potentially, if your opponent's not just like, all right, 5k combo, right, stopping each of your 10k leader swings, right? So you obviously want to increase your leader's power to force that if your opponent does out combo, they're using up a lot more resources, right? A lot more of their hand size to try to stop the attack from going through. But more likely, they're going to let you deal them the damage because they want their hand size to increase instead of decrease. So you're going to exploit that and take advantage of that. So swing, right? So at least, whether your deck's good or not, right? Because some people always be like, oh, no way your decks are good. No way you can. I don't believe you can deal damage or win and all this nonsense. Is like, that don't even make any logical sense. This game is too easy to not deal damage. You could just swing with the leader for 4 turns straight and deal 4 damage at least, right? The first 4 damage is the easiest, like I say. So at least that. So no way, it makes sense for anybody to be like, oh, no way you can do damage to your opponent with that deck. It's like, yeah, that's not how it works. Any deck, regardless of the deck is good or not, can deal damage, right? The leader is always there, right? It's always there to swing. If your leader has double strike or dual attack or some ability to, help you deal more damage, then the likelihood of you dealing a lot of damage is higher than if it didn't, right? So like, that's why I have stuff like Champa and E-Supreme Kai in my decks, right? And then people still believe like, oh man, this deck ain't good. I doubt this deck can do damage and blah, blah, blah. It's like, but how do you doubt it when there's so much double strike in here, so much power boost in here? Super combos are not the only ways to make things stronger. Like, that'd be ridiculous to think that that's the only thing that makes things stronger, But I digress. Moving on to number 6. First, this is, the philosophy thing, right? The thing I say all the time in a lot of my videos, which is the first 4 damage is the easiest. The next 2 damage requires a little bit of effort, and the last 2 is the hardest because your opponent's going to do everything they can to not let you deal the last 2 damage. A lot of times, the first 4 damage is easy without you even attacking. Sometimes your opponent plays leaders or effects that causes them to lose life. So right off the bat, they're going to lose the first 4 life relatively easy, whether they do it themselves or you do it to them. The first 4 life is the easiest to. So technically, the way you should look at the game is you're essentially playing against your opponent with 4 life, right? They have 4 life, you have 8, right? Because more likely, if you're me, I'm always trying to at least protect my life. So I get my opponent down to 4 before I even reach, 5 life? 6 at times. So my opponent always hits 4 before I hit 4, right? Before I ever get to 4. Just recently I did some gameplay, and if I'm right, I was at 7 life when my opponent was at 4. Yeah, I was at 7, my opponent was at 4. And then I got him down to 3. if I'm right, I got down to 6 after that. Then I got them down to 2. And I was at 5. Yeah, I got them down to 2. I was at 5. And I was like, damn, if I was at 4, I could Awaken. But on their turn, they hit me. I got to 4. I was able to Awaken. I did some Awaken playing some. You'll see the gameplay. I'll upload it soon once I edit it. But the point is, like, my opponent, was getting close to, running out of life, while I still had a high life, and that's the whole point. To say my decks don't do damage is just ridiculous. Dealing damage is one of the easiest things you can do at the beginning of the game. It's late game that gets where it gets hard. And I never claim that my decks can guarantee your opponent, will always hit 0. I never say that. That would be a false claim, because anything can happen. You can always lose before you win, obviously, right? You can literally be 1 turn away from winning, just 1 turn, just 1 more turn, play this card, burn your opponent for 1 game, right? But they beat you before that happens, so it's like, that happens. They got that extra attack in by Overwhelm or something, or they drew their ultimate, like their Cell Zeno and Cell Zeno to you for games. Like, damn, you got lucky that you drew that Cell Zeno right now, because without it, you wasn't gonna win, right? That can happen, right? Just like in the gameplay, you'll see that I'll upload soon. After this, I was expecting to lose. I'm like, okay, my opponent got it. I'm tapped out. My opponent got this. It's time for them to go for game. Right? They dealt me damage. I added, if I'm right, I was at 3 life. They dealt me double strike. I added 2 cards from my life to my hand. I wasn't paying attention because I was too busy, talking, commentating about, my opponent got this, they got game. They just need 1 more attack or some shit like that. And then I realized that in my hand, I had a Hatchiyak in my hand. Was it that turn, or was it when I had 6? He hit me for 1, and then I got the Hatchiyak, and then I was able to drop it. I can't remember at the moment. You'll see it in the gameplay. But the point is that I was expecting to lose, and then in my life was Hatchiyak, the 1 copy, and I'm playing a 53 card deck, 53 card decks, and I just so happened to get Hatchiyak from my life to my hand, and I was able to play it for free. And I was like, oh shit, I actually get another turn. And then I played Tragedy Overground 2 turns after that. So I got 2 turns after that. I was expecting to lose right there and then, but I got 2 turns after that. And I was able to play Tragedy Overground, right? Which was awesome. I still lost the match, by the way, right? Because my goal wasn't to win, but I was fortunate that I was able to get to the point where I was able to at least play the Tragedy Overground, which was the whole goal. The reason I was playing was to do that, just to play the card, just play it, just ramp with KO and play it. That's it. Don't gotta try to win. Don't gotta do anything fancy. Just try to get to that, and I did. All thanks to Hatchiyak, which is just 1 copy of 1 card in my deck, and I drew it and I used it. So that's something that you can't plan out, right? It happens. It happens. So that's the point. Everything else you can plan out. Everything else you can do on purpose, like swinging with your leader every turn, playing a unison and swinging with it, and so forth and so forth. How you combo, how you block, how you negate, how you counterplay, whatever. What you charge, what you mulligan. These are things you can control. What you can't control is, if your opponent has a negate or not, or if your opponent has enough cards in their hands to out combo your attack or not, or if you draw a Hatchiyak at the right time, right? You're 1 copy of a card, and get it at the right time where it mattered, where it actually, changes things. The likelihood of that happening is, something way out of your control. Where are we at? 7? All right. Burn and mill, best way to win, because your opponent can't defend against it, right? Your opponent has blockers, negates, and the ability to out-combo attacks. What they don't really have is the ability to stop burn damage and them running out of cards. One, they're already trying to draw as many cards from their deck as possible anyway. So they're already technically self-milling themselves by just drawing every turn, right? Drawing a lot. Then if you use card effects that make them mill or make them draw more cards, then the likelihood of them running out of cards in the deck is highly likely, and you can win just because they ran out of cards in their deck, right? So that's why burn and mill are, the best way to win at this game. Now you can, try to win through victory strike or having a big battle card or units or whatever, have a really high attack power, right? With like double strike or something, or triple strike, and just go in for game that way. But that tends to get a little harder to do than you expect. That's why I try to not go that route of trying to go tall, trying to have a big hand size and then attack, hope my opponent doesn't negate, and then just like, all right, chopper, dump my whole hand into this attack, and hopefully my opponent can't out combo. Like, I'd rather not waste time with that, because that's guessing. You're guessing when that happens. There's no guarantee that will work. I've played it enough to know that doesn't always work. Attacking for game. Best course of action is going wide for game. Having multiple attacks that are really big, like a whole bunch of 30Ks, and swinging at your opponent. That has a higher chance of success. Burn obviously has a higher chance of success, and mill. So going wide, let's just add that. So burn, mill, and going wide are your best ways to win the game. So let me just add that. I don't do that as often. I don't go wide as I used to. I just focus like on burn and mill, mostly burn, but going wide also has its benefits. Try to keep your opponent hand size under 6 cards, because more than that, then they have more options. There's the combo math gets tougher, right? Because they got more stuff they can try to combo with. That's when you're when you actually care about when it comes to comboing. That's when you care about your opponent's hand size. Other than that, my opponent can have 40 cards in the hands. I don't care, because I'm just gonna burn them, right? But if I'm trying to win through an attack, hand size does matter. Then number 9, you want opponent to be tapped out, right? You always want your opponent to be tapped out. That reduces the possibility of somebody playing like a active battle card and negate a rival play or something. You always want your opponent to be tapped out, so you're always hoping they tap out every turn, and you're trying to take advantage of that every turn, right? Trying to deal damage where they can't negate or a rival, whatever. That's what you're always looking for. You're always looking for those tapped out turn opportunities and try to take advantage of it. Like I said, small hand size, tapped out are the two things you're always looking for when you're playing, and take advantage. When they do. Take advantage when your opponent has a small hand size and they're tapped out. There's a high probability they can't stop you from going for game. So, try to go for game, but don't leave yourself defenseless. Like, don't you tap out trying to go for game, and then it turns out your opponent actually isn't defenseless, right? And then you end up, putting yourself in the tapped out low hand size situation, and then they take advantage and then they win because you actually was in a weakened state, right? So be careful. Number 10, force opponent to use their super combos and negates before your turn kill, your kill turn. Mainly get them to play their super combos and negates and blockers and stuff like that. Early game to mid game. Mostly when your kill turn is usually turn 4 or 5, maybe 6. That tends to be more like early to late, right? Early late game is what I'm saying. Late game is when you typically try to go for game. So turn 4, turn 5 is typically the turns you try to go for game, because you should have dealt enough damage by then, and you should definitely be in a better position. You should have drawn a lot of cards by then, by going back and forth, by taking damage to your life, by attacking your leader. So let's say you took 4 damage by turn 4, that's 4 cards in your hands, right? You swing with your leader every turn for those 4 turns, so you drew for your leader's ability, so that's 8 cards to your hands. That's 8 cards on top of whatever else you already have in your hands. So your hand should be pretty thick by turn 4 So trying to go for games, stuff like that would be typical on turn 4. Sometimes, you know, turn 5, depending if you're trying to go for game with a 5-drop. Moving on, I was at 10, right? 11. Also, if you play super combos, I don't play super combos a lot, but I do play them from time to time. Obviously, you want to save your super combos and make your opponent waste theirs, right? Logically. I have to say it just in case no one thinks of that. You don't want to make your opponent waste their super combos by you using your super combos. You want to force them to use your super combos and save your super combos. So let me put it like that. Just because I don't use super combos doesn't mean I don't understand how to use them, right? Like, obviously save yours and make your opponent waste theirs. 11, save your defense cards for mid to late game. You know, I mentioned that earlier, how you mulligan. You typically want to start the game off with your offensive cards, right? The game just started. You still have 8 life. Even if your opponent manages to do you 4 damage on turn 1, right? You're still in the game. Right, turn 2, you know, keep your defense, you know, try to keep your defenses up, right, and then turn 3 and 4, you know, should be relatively easy to get, you know, to be, you know, to start playing defense, because you have more energy and you should start drawing a lot of your defensive cards, right? So you don't have to worry about trying to defend your life as soon as the game starts. So put your defensive cards away, right, mulligan them away, and get your offensive cards, and immediately start dealing your opponent a lot of damage. And please stop being scared. I mean, do what you want. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you how I play. And the way I play is I'm not afraid of attacking my opponent turn 1, dealing them 6 damage. Now they got 6 cards in their hands. I don't care if they're playing like launch or something, and they could play half their hand on turn 2. I don't care, right? You know, we have stuff like Flying Nimbus, Violent Rays, Power Protector of the People, and stuff like that. We have floodgate negates that cost 1 or 2 energies. So, you know, we have free negates, right? We got the blocker negates where you can negate attack and make a token and block. Like, we got stuff like that. Like, Bandai's been giving us a lot of defensive stuff to make it easier to defend. So we shouldn't be hesitant to, like, you know, try to play it safe, as it were. Like, no, go in, go hard, deal a lot of damage, and then deal with, you know, it. You know, your opponent having a whole bunch of cards later on. Don't worry about giving them card advantage. I understand if you're playing a hand destruction deck, yeah, of course. Don't give them a whole bunch of cards. That goes against your deck strategy. Your deck strategy is to try to get your opponent's hand size down to 0, or at least way less than 6, like down to 3 or something, right? Where you'll have the advantage by them having a smaller hand size than you. But if you're an aggro player or you play blue or something, whatever, you know, in general, you should, no matter what, unless you're playing hand control, you shouldn't be afraid of your opponent's hand, right? You shouldn't be afraid to deal them a lot of damage and put a lot of cards in the hands, because that could make a huge difference. You might be in a situation where it's like, yeah, your opponent has a big hand size, but most of it is like extra cards in unisons, for example, or a lot of them are like 10k combo power, but it requires an energy, and then at some moment your opponent is tapped out. You play a 4-drop double strike, for example. You go for game, you know, you swing, and then your opponent is like no negate, and then you're like, you combo a couple cards in your hands, probably get it to 30k double strike, and then your opponent's like, all right, good game. You're like, oh shit, your hands, you know, you got like 12 cards in your hands, yet you weren't able to out combo this attack. It's like, yeah, that can happen. So don't be afraid of your opponent having a huge hand size. And don't be afraid to be the reason why their hand size is big. What matters is that you get their life, you know, close to 0, and then get them to 0. That should be your goal. That is my goal when I play. So that should be your goal as well. Get your opponent down to 0 as quickly as possible. Don't try to make the game last for like 10, 20 turns. That's ridiculous. But anyway, hey, play however you want. I'm just saying that's how I play. I'd rather lose quickly or win quickly. As long as it's quick. I'm happy either way, you know, because, you know, there's always a game 2, right? Unless it's best of 1, then it's like, I lost this game, I'll go play against somebody else, right? Where am I? 11, right? Save your. Okay, I'm at 12 now. Finally at the end, right? Beat the game, not your opponent's deck, which was what I was already saying, is that I focus on getting my opponent down to 0, right? Focus on the mechanics of the game, the concept of the game, understanding how the game works out. You know, burn, mill, you know, going tall, going wide, like, you know, trying to figure out what is the best strategy. So far, like I already said for you, I already figured it out for you, burn, mill, and going wide tends to be more beneficial regardless of your skill level, whether you're really good at the game or really bad at the game. These three things tend to be makes the game easier. Your chances of winning are much higher if you're trying to burn for game or mill your opponent for game, or you know, go wide and try to go for game. Because regardless of your opponent's hand size, every attack your opponent has to, you know, combo for each attack, right? So if your attacks are pretty high, like 30k, 40k attackers, for example, it's going to cost your opponent a lot to out combo. So that's why I prefer stuff like floodgate negates and negates in general, because I don't want to waste time trying to out combo. Because if my opponent goes tall or tries to go wide, me trying to out combo those two scenarios is just pointless. There's a higher chance of if they go wide, of their attacks getting through and winning. So trying to out combo is pointless in that scenario. Or if they go really tall, there's no guarantee I have enough to out combo that one attack. So I'd rather just flat out negate, block, or take the hit. Those are the three things that I'd rather do than to try to out combo. So that, again, that's just how I play. Just trying to give you some insights on how I think, how I roll, how I do what I do. And, you know, it's been, what, 3 to 4 years now. You know, Dragon Ball Super has been out, and I've been playing since set 1. So this is knowledge and experience from many years. You know, I mastered the craft, as it were, regardless if you like my deck profiles or not, regardless if you like my ideas or not. Doesn't change the fact that my ideas and, you know, my experience comes from being involved in the game, playing the game for so long. It's not like I just started playing the game yesterday and I think I know everything. No. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of people who literally just started playing the game like last week or a month ago or during the pandemic, trying to tell me how to play the game. Like, what? No, rookie. You don't teach the teacher. The teacher teaches you. You know, is it possible for you to surpass the master? Yeah, it is possible. But the best way to surpass the master is to learn from the master in the first place. Take his knowledge, take what you know, combine it, and mathematically, you should know more than the master, because you know what the master knows plus what you know. But most people like to think they know everything. Oh well, that's the end of the video.